Hey all, Toves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo. So, episode 4 of my seal habitat. This has been going on for a little while, episode 4 now. So we're starting off adding some kind of water filtration, or some implied kind of water filtration bits. Obviously we have got numerous tanks of water. I think we're up to like, we've got like 4 or 5 pools now, I think, something like that. So yeah, this idea that there's some water filtration systems going on. This is attached to the backstage area. So you see me kind of building this little tank. I think this is kind of a fairly important thing. I actually haven't used the in-game ones in this, but I think they'll probably have to be somewhere close to the habitat. But yeah, so I wanted to sort of build this. I don't know, really, just for the fun of it, just to have some little, some more details, really. If you haven't seen any of these previously, yeah, part 4. So there's quite a bit you've missed. So jump back and take a look at those. But we're cracking on with it now. I think we're pretty much close to done. I think I've said that for the last 2 episodes, but hey ho, we're pretty much close to done. We're close to getting this habitat finished and uploaded to the workshop. As I have said before, it will be featuring in a new zoo that I'm creating. It's not actually going to be built out from this. I've sort of made the decision now. It's not going to be built out from this habitat. I'm going to start on a new map and add some of these habitats to that new map. But that will be a little bit of a way off. The habitat is still not finished by the end of this episode, so I think we are probably, maybe one episode away still from it being finished. At that point, I'll upload it to the workshop. I've had a few people on Reddit and such asking me if it's already available. It's not yet, but be assured it will be uploaded to the workshop with a whole bunch of instructions, because it's a fairly complicated thing with, as I said, lots of different pools of water and barriers and such all over the place. So this is starting to come together now. This is also will be uploaded separately to the workshop, so that you can kind of pick this up and use it. It's pretty similar in look to the in-game one. Actually, I did some Googling, looking some rounds of some reference pictures, and actually what's in-game is reasonably similar to what actually you'd sort of see in these in reality. So for this sort of purpose, I think this works out all right. Putting this kind of little control system on it, I think it looks okay. Some pipes and whatnot. There's a little kind of symbol there, and giving it some sort of little kind of structural bits and details, really, just to kind of bring it to life. This is all just next to, you'll see in the background there, see it better here. This is all just next to the seal house that we built in episode 3. So there you go, got a little view into the window there. Yeah, so doubled this up, and this is supposed to be, you'll see this in more detail when we get to the actual real-time tour, but this is supposed to, again, just be a little cluttered, busy area. Obviously not an area that the seals go into, but an area that the keepers are in and out of all the time, and it's actually a bit of a passageway between 2 sections of the animal area. I really like, if you haven't seen my stuff before, I'm kind of obsessed with the backstage areas. I quite often, when I'm looking for reference pictures or looking for reference material, I'm looking at what I see of backstages of zoos is generally always pretty cluttered and messy and tight, and it's quite industrial looking in lots of cases, and that's quite a difficult thing to achieve in the game, because there's only a certain number of kind of cluttered things you can do. But I think the sense of scale is quite important, and thinking your way through kind of the practical use of an area. So I kind of do that a little bit here. I decide that this actually could be kind of a little bit of a break area as well, for the keepers. So just put a little table in here and stuff. And as I said, it's kind of a little passageway between 2 sections. How I'm kind of separating this from separating this off from the animals is just by using those slightly narrower gates. As you see there, you can see a door there that's like this gateway. It's not quite narrow enough, not quite wide enough for a seal to get through, an adult seal, but narrow enough for the keepers to get through, and that's how I'm kind of making sure that the keepers can get in and out of there. Obviously there are gates, and it's kind of implied that if it was, in reality they'd be shutting those gates and opening those gates all the time, but obviously we can't do that in the game. So this is all just supposed to look a bit scruffy. It's sort of, I kind of like doing these things that, again, when there's like non-guest facing areas, just to make it kind of a little bit unkept, and there would be weeds and all that sort of thing. Not stuff that they'd want to have to be fussing about too much. So big kind of clogs of brambles and nettles, and and there's bits under, sort of little bits of the trees. This section, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but this is a little trick for sort of getting trees into the habitat without having them in areas where the animals can get. So I've done this in a few places throughout this habitat. I had these little kind of sectioned off pockets where I can put trees where, as I said, the animals can't get to those trees, and they can't, they can't ingest the bark and the tree and the leaves and all that sort of stuff. So obviously all a bit unnecessary, but I kind of like doing that sort of thing. Okay, so back to doing a little bit of decorating on the guest side of things. So using some of the faux rocks. This is mainly just putting sort of finishing details in, really, in a lot of these places. A lot of these little bits. This is me kind of tidying up some of the bits that I hadn't finished up before. Pretty much, I would say, actually, by the end of this episode, barring maybe a couple of little tiny signs, all of the guest-facing part of this habitat is going to be finished. Most of what you're seeing here is just kind of little finishing touches and embellishments, and me exercising that thing that's never knows quite when to stop, that gene that never quite knows what it's done. There's a little bit there. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I played around with this kind of idea of there being a little bit of damage to the habitat. We will see that in the real-time tool in better detail. So another pool going in. So I talked about this in the previous episodes, but a lot of the compliancy rules and the guidelines that the zoo set out for pinnipeds talk about having separation pools and different ways of segregating animals for different purposes, be that sort of quarantine or having infants and all that sort of thing. This one is slightly more. I don't really know what the purpose of this one is. I guess this is slightly more of a backstage kind of observation area. I need some mechanic or some mechanism to separate this off from the rest of the pool. I think probably, or the rest of the guest-facing parts, probably some sort of gate needs to be added at some point, but not quite yet. I've been focusing a lot this week on trying to consider the keeper access and the practical kind of bits and pieces where people will be able to get in and out. And what I had sort of realised is that I've got some little places that would be kind of inaccessible to vehicles. So I do rectify that quite a bit in this. We'll see that. I don't think much of that is in the speed build, but you'll see a bunch of it in the tour. As ever, there's usually quite a bit more done in the tour that I cut out of the speed build. Done in the build, actually, that I cut out of the speed build. Because these speed builds generally, you don't want them to be too long. So yeah, big sort of quite a reasonable little jump there on that where I did this kind of flower bed and these extra bits and pieces. This is all just next to that tank where we saw me add in the extra kind of observation tank. So I've got, you see some trees back there and a little flower bed, a ramp up here. I later go back and add some steps and stuff up to this. So yeah, quite like doing these little things. I had a couple of times where I put big trees in and then sort of had second guessed myself and like, okay, there wouldn't be a big tree there because a big tree would take, 50, 60, 70, 80 years to mature. And so how would that have got there? I went back and replaced actually the whole exterior fence system that I had in the last episode. I think there was a couple of little places you could see it in the previous episode. I've gone back and actually simplified that back down to this custom made one that's using the barrier, using the wire barrier and this little custom kind of frame here. There's my first little actual kind of proper access gate. So this is in theory big enough for like a little minivan or a forklift to get through, and then that's obviously how we would be getting them in and out. Okay, so I'm building this slightly away from the main part of the habitat here. This is a little prep area, again massively inspired by some source material I looked at this week. Was watching an episode of behind the scenes of the Chester Zoo long-run documentary that's been going on for a while, and I saw this little prep area where they were giving, it was actually an otter habitat where they were giving the otters fish. They were preparing the fish before they gave it to them. So the fish came in kind of big containers or freezer boxes or something, and they were washing the fish and separating them and preparing them, doing stuff like putting medicine in them where they needed to. And so there was this sort of series of little sinks, and that was kind of the picture I had that I was working from. So I've created these almost like little mini Belfast sinks, and I'm playing around with sort of suggested water levels in there. Took me a bit of fiddling, but I'm using some of the font pieces there to create these kind of water levels. A couple of different heights, and then one that's like slightly dirtier water. I've used the habitat pumps, so the actual fountain pieces there, in a couple of them for the spouts or the spigots, and then I'm looking around for something to use to create some taps. I end up using one of the bike handlebars for that. And if you kind of colour these, you can get them to kind of work quite well as little taps. Obviously, it gives you a little bit of a problem because you have something sticking out the back you've got to hide away, but that tends to always be the case in Planet Zoo. So the actual buildings themselves, pretty simple. I'm using grid pieces. I did kind of toy with the idea of making them custom. I think they're okay to be kind of just concrete buildings. There's all my hidden bikes there that I need to hide away. Pretty simple structures, little boxy things. Some concrete in, some details. This is supposed to be, obviously this is a completely backstage area again, so an area that the keepers would be going in, doing some work in, and then go straight into the habitats. Creating this little desk. Works out right. I actually really like these chipboard pieces. You see a lot of this kind of unfinished surfaces and stuff like that when you look at the backstage references. You see a lot of this kind of stuff that again is just purely function, isn't aesthetically pretty at all. It's just purely function. Although we have got the tiled wall there, I've repurposed that tiled wall. So putting a few little boxes and stuff in. That's from my I think that was from one of my gift shop sets or something, I can't remember. So just detail, pretty much just constant detail. I was never, this is the thing, it was like when you look at the reference pictures, you just look and you think there's so much in reality that we take for granted that surrounds us all the time, and trying to kind of recreate anything that looks even vaguely realistic, for me, always just requires so much detail and so much time spent on that. So just some little, there was some little guidelines and some instructions and things. So just a little nod at those. Nothing too major here. As I said, little bits and pieces. There was supposed to be some little notices for the keepers and some instructions and stuff up on the wall. I think we make 2 or 3 of these. Pretty simple. It's a lot easier to make these sorts of things now. We've got these font pieces. They lend themselves really well, mostly because they don't have any kind of depth, so they're easier to do. Right, so this is supposed to be food pellets. So it looks a bit weird at the moment, but what I'm trying to create is like an open plastic barrel, like a plastic container sort of barrel that's full of stuff but open. I actually added a little bit more to this in after the speed build, which you'll see in the tour, but at the moment they don't quite look right. Playing around with this, creating this lid. So I've created a lid. Obviously it's entirely flat, but I think that's okay. I just try and make it look like it's sort of like a popped open seal, like almost like a metal that's been popped up. And then I'm looking for something that I can put inside that's going to make it look like it's got feed in or something that kind of looks like pellets. So that was a little bit of a challenge. I think it came out all right. Again, these will be on the workshop. Initially, I'm just trying to kind of go, okay, well, maybe just like little dots, but they feel like they're too big. So then I end up looking, what else can I use? What else can I use? I end up using the bottom of these. So that's the underside of one of the little flower bed flowers, and that actually looks quite good. It's quite a lot like kind of like a little meal or something. I've added one, and as I said, I've added an additional one with a little scoop in it, which we'll see in the tour. So we're getting pretty close to the end. This is the last little bits of details. Another little kind of notice up on the wall, posters. You see a little kind of coat hook and stuff there. It'd be lovely if there was actually something we could use to put on those coat hooks, but I couldn't think of anything. So yeah, thank you very much for watching the speed build. As ever, the real-time tool will be up straight after this. Okay, welcome to the tour. So we'll start from a bit of an overview position today. So we'll swoop down. Actually, let's unpause it. Swoop down. You see I've added a load more of the rock texture. You can see a lot more of this stuff is kind of finished now. I think this kind of brings it all, starts to bring it all together. We've got the sort of sandstone effect block work all the way round. Got a bunch more of the foliage and stuff in place. Just watching to see if that keeper still follows the route. I think I actually ended up widening this pontoon at the end, but they still do that where they kind of drop into the water. There's not a lot I can do about it, I don't think. I don't know why he does that, but hey ho, maybe he just likes to swim. Right, so let's head on up this way. So this is the new ramp. Obviously this was all kind of just open before in the previous episode. So let's zoom up here. So yeah, got a little bit of steps and stuff. As I said, there needs to be some sort of gate system in here, I think, just to sort of separate this area off even further. Again, that's something we kind of miss in the game a bit, but there's lots and lots of... see that a lot in real zoos, is kind of these different sectionable areas separated off by different gates and stuff. Yeah, I would love to be able to have that in the game. So here is an additional backstage pool. A bit more of a kind of observation area, this one, I guess. Pretty simple. Use some more of that, some more of this kind of cladding stuff that I have inside. Yeah, filled in all this back area now. So we've got some trees and stuff. As I said, it's quite nice to have these bits of the habitat that can be have foliage in them but be separated away from the animals. So as you'd sort of expect, a few trees, a few broken bits, loads of weeds, loads of brambles and all that sort of stuff. Another little set of steps down there with a little handrail. So just so you get your bearings, this is obviously the internal pool. This is the internal area from the previous episode, and that's the training pool and stuff to the right. And there's a gate here. We'll go through that gate in a second. And let me show you this. Go back this way then. So through this gate is this little kind of implied, almost like a break area, but also kind of a functional kind of utility area. So there's my little water tanks and stuff. I think they came out all right. Pretty simple. Obviously, it's supposed to be that they're filtering the water that's on the other side of that door in the training pool. So in there, in case you're wondering, I'm using a controller to fly around today. I'll just give it a go, see what it looks like. Let me know what you think, if this is any good for the tours and stuff. It might just be a bit smoother. It may be a bit annoying, I don't know. We shall see. Right, we'll go back this way. Scoot this way. And we'll fly through this gate. So yeah, this is just a further sort of access point. So I sort of thought about it, you know, you'd need to be able to get animals in and out of multiple different areas. And so I've got a gate similar to this we saw in the speed build added further around the habitat. But yeah, another one here. This brings you round to this little kind of circuit breaker thing that we had in the last episode. Some of this area is not done. I made a little bit of a change in here. I've added in, seeing as this is supposed to be our kind of infant and birthing area, I decided to add these guys actually in here. Part of the reason was kind of do like having the babies, but obviously, as I talked about, I've got these bits of the habitat that are separated off from the adults, but because the infants are basically the same size as the keepers, then we have a bit of a problem with them. We'll carry on this way through this gate. We've seen all this before. This is the training pool. A lot of this is now finished. So we have a little fenceway here. Let's just fly up a little bit. See if we can see this from a bit higher up. And we have further on down here. So this is where the quarantine area is. Just fly around again. That's where the quarantine area is. We actually have another gate coming in through the habitat there. Here you see all the fence work. Actually, you can kind of see the fence I was using behind. That's all going to get taken away. I think this just looks a bit more realistic. It's a bit more kind of rough. It's just made out of some of the canvas and some of the corrugated metal and those sorts of things. So there's our little quarantine. There's our little quarantine pen again. Our little isolation pen with our quarantine male in there. And then if we fly down this way, you'll see. I can't remember if I talked about this in the last episode, but one of the problems I was having was making sure that the keepers still cross the bridge here, but when the animals got boxed, they didn't. I didn't want the animals coming this way, so we don't actually, amazingly, we don't seem to have any animals boxed. But the whole point of putting this gate here was supposed to be that when the animals are boxed, the animals will go straight ahead down that route, and they'll do that because this gate or this barrier is actually too low for the keepers. So the keepers' head height is kind of out there, so rather than duck, they'll make a left turn. So the keepers take a left turn and head over the bridge, whereas the animals go straight ahead, head down that way back to the habitat. So on the other side of this, as you'll see, we have this kind of little, let me just fly around here a second. We have this little, these couple of little huts. One of these we saw in the speed build. The other one is actually just pretty much a copy. Come down here, there needs to be some work down here. I think there's probably going to be another little gate down here. I've got that blocked off at the moment, but that will be open. And then we are pretty much now back at the, as you see him coming out of the gate. If we go into, so as I said, that one on the right is just a kind of a bit of a mock-up. Actually has the keeper hut and the gate in it. And then this one on the left is the one we saw me building in the speed build. So we have this little prep area with the little sinks and the little food station and stuff. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty alright now. I think it's looking pretty cool. I think this kind of does the job. As I said, it's got lots and lots of details to it. Let's have a flight. We'll take a kind of a flight overview. We'll go back to controlling this with my mouse so I can get a bit better controls. There we go. It's a little bit more jerky, but a little bit quicker to get around. So yeah, here's that new area in context. The little Jeep and stuff. As I said, there'll be a gate down here. This area here needs to be finished. That's the little path up to the back of the show arena, and then obviously all this actual area here I need to blend in. I'm kind of still working out at the moment whether I'm blending this in as part of adding it to the new zoo or doing that in this and uploading it as a habitat. I think I'll probably upload it as part of this habitat. I pitched these from the workshop, by the way. This is these are from Carlos. I'll put the link of those in the collection. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. As I said, there should be one more episode of this before it's uploaded to the workshop. Do let me know if you are interested in if you like the new style of kind of flying around. Maybe a bit, I don't know, we'll try it out, see what it seems like. If it's a bit annoying, I'll go back to the other way. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. My name is Toves. These are mostly built on Twitch, so if you want to follow along the live process, and yeah, as I said, this will probably be one more episode of this, and we'll be done. All right, thank you very much for watching. My name is Toves. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Very much appreciate it, and I shall catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.